Welcome back, fight fans. Welcome back. Let's just dig right into it. Danny Swift Garcia stops Adrian Granados in the 7th round. It was a very interesting fight, but it was a fight that, we could have predicted from a long time ago. We knew that Danny Garcia is a very powerful fighter at 147 pounds. We know that Danny Garcia has a hell of a hook. We know that Danny Garcia is a natural puncher, but we also know that Danny Garcia is somewhat flat-footed and slow. And Adrian Granados was tailor-made for his style because Adrian Granados, once he tasted Danny's power, he didn't have the defensive abilities, the footwork to avoid those big shots for the whole fight. Because of that, Adrian Granados, went down a few times in the fight and ultimately was stopped. He couldn't take the power. In my opinion, I thought Adrian Granados' work rate was good early in the fight, but after he tasted Danny Garcia's power, that was ultimately the difference in the game changer. So even if it would have went 12 rounds, Adrian Granados was just going to take a ton of punishment and lose pretty much every round after that. I just didn't see Adrian Granados having the chin to stand up to, Danny Garcia's power. I predicted Danny Garcia would win because I knew Danny Garcia was a smart boxer, intelligent boxer, a stronger boxer, but at the same time, I thought Granados had a chance to outwork him in this fight because he did have a great work rate in the first round. His work rate was higher than Danny Garcia's, especially going into the second round, until he started to feel Danny Garcia's true power, and that's what turned the fight. Now, Danny Garcia is stating that, he's back and, he's ready to fight and all these things. You have to look at it like this. Danny Garcia, while he did put on a good performance against an Adrian Granados, you have to keep a few things in mind. Adrian Granados is a natural 140-pound fighter. So fighting at 147 for Adrian Granados, that's not a huge win for Danny Garcia. Fighting a guy who has defensive liabilities is not a huge statement for Danny Garcia. And Danny Garcia still typically looked the same in the same, this fight that he did in the Sean Porter and Keith Thurman fights, two other close fights that he lost. He still looked somewhat flat-footed and slow, still waiting to counter. He did look a little bit busier than he normally does in those fights, so I give him credit for that, but his work rate's going to have to significantly improve. He's going to have to be a lot more active if he's going to beat the upper echelons of the fighters at 147 pounds. It's just as simple as that. I think Danny Garcia is a very good fighter, very strong fighter, and he can hurt any welterweight, but the problem with Danny is he's not going to be able to land enough shots because every welterweight knows that he's flat-footed and they're going to move. They're going to make it difficult to hit. Adrian Granados simply did not have the defense for Danny Garcia. Didn't have the skills and the levels to show that in this type of fight. Now, while I do believe that, Danny Garcia is a very good fighter, an interesting fighter, and it can compete with the best at 147, Danny Garcia has already stated that he'd be interested in a few more fights at 147, then moving up to 154. I think before he moves up to 147, he's probably looking at a fight with Errol Spence. They're on the same promotional banner, and, that's a fight that he's already talked about, so I can definitely see that happening. But the thing about Danny Garcia, he's already turned down a huge offer to fight Terrence Crawford, and I think that Terrence Crawford, he knows that that's a bad fight for him. Terrence Crawford has dimensions and levels to his game, and I think that's a huge bad fight for him, but I think that he feels it's okay if he loses to Errol Spence Jr. because he may feel Errol Spence Jr., in him is going to be a huge payday, a huge fight, a much bigger fight than a Terrence Crawford fight. But we'll see. Maybe it is. But at the end of the day, if we're being honest and unbiased, Danny Garcia stating that he's back, well, he is back to being the old Danny, but that Danny may just not be good enough to beat the very best. But once again, unbiased as always, it's the IBFP. Please share, like, and you must absolutely subscribe.